Welcome to The Way for Paralegals with your hosts, Marisa and Allison McKean. This is the podcast for paralegals by paralegals and attorneys who believe that paralegals are the lifeblood of law firms and deserve a place to connect, grow, and engage. All right, let's dive into this episode.
Hey, Marissa.
Hey, Allison.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Been busy lately?
Yes, I have. There's so much going on between our AI era, Best for Best era, Para era. We're getting AI stuff going on. More to come.
Lots in the Slack community too for Para Era.
Yes. I love the engagement. There's been such good conversations in there. Great group of folks in our community in Para era.
I love it. I love it. You might have some ideas for this session, but nothing drawing from the paralegal Slack. But we talked about stupid things paralegals do.
Yep.
And I think it's only fair that we talk about stupid things lawyers do.
I agree. I think it might go off the Richter scale compared to.
But I mean, look, in an organization, the lawyers supervise the paralegals. So I think we can take a different, I'm going to be actually critical of what lawyers do sometimes. And the first thing I want to talk about is they ignore their paralegal. So, I mean, have you had that experience with
almost every attorney
being
I've ever
left on red?
Actually, not with almost every, probably with every, but I mean, we do it as paralegals too. We get busy, we see the message and we can't get to it right away. So we're like, all right, I'll get back to them. And then we get caught up in our work and we forget. It happens. But there's definitely a different ignoring manner that certain attorneys do. And understanding that is very important, that, you know, when your paralegal needs something that cannot be done at their level, you may not be able to get to it in that moment, but it's very important that either you make a note to self or tell the paralegal. This has always worked for me the best, is tell the paralegal to add a time on their calendar for a time for you guys to meet so that nobody forgets to go back to what needs to be discussed. That's huge. One thing, just make sure your paralegal has permission to add to your calendar.
Yeah, please.
No.
Please do that.
But yeah, so the ignoring of your team, you shouldn't be the one supervising them if you cannot be the one to answer their questions and help them with areas that they can't handle themselves. So if I draft something for you, maybe it's the first time I do it, I need that feedback from you that I've done it correctly or what needs to be done or changed or whatever the case may be. I need that feedback from you as soon as possible so that I can make sure that I can move on to my next task. It's a bottleneck that starts happening when work is not being approved because an attorney is not responding or, fails to respond a lot. And then who does it fall on? The paralegal.
Yeah. And it's not a case of like the paralegal is not doing her job. This might be about things that the paralegal cannot do legally, cannot give this advice, cannot answer this question.
Exactly.
And the attorney needs to step in. It becomes the attorney's job to give some direction there.
Yep. Yeah. And
not a failure on the paralegal's part.
right. And sometimes, with clients too, like you were saying, we can't give legal advice. That can only come from the attorney. But sometimes you will have a handful of clients that want to speak with the attorney about something very specific that maybe you've already talked to them about as the paralegal, but they're just insistent. They want the attorney's time. And it's important that it's recognized that, when the paralegal comes to you with that type of request to call the client because of the certain situation, that you take that and you listen to why you need to call the client and why the paralegal needs your help getting past this hill. Sometimes it's as simple as the attorney calling the client and saying, my paralegal can help you with this stuff so that it doesn't happen again.
Just validating.
Exactly.
One of the things that you said about allowing your paralegal to put things on an attorney's calendar, that would be helpful too if your paralegal's able to put things like client calls
Yes.
and just immediately say, okay, I'm going to need to schedule you with the attorney. I mean, it's good client service that
Yeah,
way.
absolutely. Right. I mean, we're in a client serving industry and we have to have unreasonable hospitality, especially when it's not a circumstance that's going to happen every single day or week. You know, these are very specific circumstances. Um, especially if you have a seasoned paralegal that works with you, most of the time the attorney doesn't need to speak with the client. It like for months. It's usually just the paralegal. So they should understand that if a client call gets added to their calendar because a paralegal scheduled it, it is a situation that really does require their attention. Or the client needs that extra guidance to understand my paralegal can assist you with this, So,
Yeah, and just giving the attorney some overview of what the call is going to be about and
right.
why they need the attorney and not the paralegal.
Exactly.
Yeah, so don't ignore your paralegal when they have questions because it might be part of your job.
Yep.
Micromanaging.
Yeah.
You experienced that?
Way too many times. There are a lot of certain situations that I've been in that stand out to me more than others, but I think in any industry, micromanaging is the one, it's just toxic.
Brutal.
It's so, ugh, it's a power trip that people get because they could tell you what to do and, just stress you out, burn you out. I think when you feel like you're being micromanaged, the hard part is that you don't really know who to go to because typically that person is your supervisor. But if you have somebody higher than them that you can go to about these situations, I would. It's not tattling. It's not, you're there to do your job. When you're doing what you were hired to do, maybe you go above and beyond and you do other things as well. Most of us do. But there comes a time where you have to kind of sit back and be like, that doesn't seem right. It seems like they're just giving me all of these things. One, not explaining how to complete them. And two, not giving me deadlines on when they need to be done. Just expect them to be done. And then reprimand me for having a whole workload of other things to do and not getting to this that most of the time they should have been doing themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I experience it with attorneys too. When I was an associate, I would write these briefs and I'd get things back from this one attorney with like just slash marks and angry red pen through entire pages. And I didn't know what was wrong with it. It didn't come with feedback. It was just slash marks. And then what this partner had done instead. And I didn't understand what I had done wrong. But this went on for years and it was so demoralizing. And it was just a matter of I didn't do things the way this person did it. But I can't. I never will.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't work the way I think attorneys think it will.
Hmm.
If you delegate something to somebody, you have to accept that they're going to do things a little differently. And that goes with paralegals too. I mean, if it's something that, really matters, yeah, absolutely give feedback on it so that they can improve. But if it's just slightly different, that needs to be okay. If you want to build that relationship, if you want to build the trust.
Absolutely. And another thing that I think comes with that as well is, if you work under a specific attorney that is handling a file, and that file may transfer over to a different attorney, but you're still the paralegal on it. And you were told by the attorney that you work with that, you don't need to file this. Like, just random example. You don't need to file this right now because it's probably going to go into this stage and we're probably going to settle it. So don't worry about doing that. And then if it transfers over to somebody else, and then that attorney's like, why didn't you do this? There needs to be a standard on how things operate in the firm. If it comes to this level, the attorneys need to discuss amongst each other before it transfers over to somebody else, because then it falls on the paralegal. And it's like, you're supposed to do this at this stage. Why didn't you do that? It's like, well, I was told not to. They didn't say that they didn't tell you to do that. Of course they did.
Document everything. Document everything, paralegals. Just a note in the file, like, was told not to do this because of this reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, there need to be standards.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had that experience? Have you had that experience with a micromanager where they're both simultaneously so involved in some areas and then they're just also failing to actually supervise?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one, especially when you work alongside, maybe you're in a pod. A pod is, certain people in a certain department working on the same caseload for a certain phase of a case. And when you have, let's say, another paralegal who's outstanding, okay, that works with you, but gives 40%, with the capability to give 100%, but gives 40. And then all of that work that's not done falls back on you. And now you're at 160% and 60 of that's burnout. And then you have the supervisor who is not only a micromanager, but also just ignoring the bad behavior of the other teammate. That, again, so toxic. And you also feel as the paralegal, like this cannot be brought up because one, you really like that person. You don't want to get anybody in trouble. At the same time, you cannot handle all of this work that's being dumped on you and nobody's supervising your work. So things are falling through the cracks. It's impossible to handle 2 caseloads of work and catch everything, checking the docket, making sure discovery is done on time, having to file multiple requests for extensions of time. It just looks bad on you, not just on you, but to the court. It's like, okay, enough is enough. Defense counsel's like, what are these people doing over there?
Yeah.
They've had 6 months at this point to file this. But in reality, it's because nobody's supervising the paralegal or helping the paralegal make sure that these things get done. And they're micromanaging and adding more onto their caseload that they cannot at capacity handle. And in my experience, like it's not every firm, but it doesn't matter how many times you say I need help. That help only lasts for so long. And
It's a short term.
Exactly. It's not long enough for you to get back on track.
Yeah. It's almost like an overcompensation. So
Yeah.
get ignored for a little while and then they come in because there's a deadline or something's missing or something's wrong. And then it's just like all over
Exactly.
your work.
That's a perfect way of putting it. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like look, I say this as a lawyer. I think most of my colleagues are wonderful people, but we definitely have people who struggle with different toxic traits
Mm-hmm.
and are in the profession with these toxic traits.
Yes.
How do you handle stuff like that as a paralegal? Because you can't just say like, hey, stop being this way. What's the best way to handle it when your supervisor favors your colleague and sees you as a scapegoat or, doesn't supervise enough to respect that or to recognize that you are disproportionately burdened by your workload.
I mean, there's in different situations, if your firm, is large enough for you to go and work under a different attorney, that's probably the best. But if it's a very toxic environment altogether, I would leave. Like I've been at that point of burnout where I was going home, like was breathing like all throughout the day
Yeah.
because I had so much anxiety and stress about, you know, remembering, and it doesn't matter how much you try to calendar things, like, there's so much that you miss something. That I was at the point where I was like, I'm just gonna leave. Like I didn't even have another job lined up, but I was so stressed out that I was like, I just need to go. Like for my own for your health, really. So, or maybe that supervisor is really the one that needs to be talked to by the leadership team. Maybe they are really the ones that will get the boot. So it's not bad to bring these things up to leadership. So I think it's really dependent on circumstance. Can you go work in a different department? Maybe you just don't mesh well personality wise. That also is a thing. Like maybe this person comes off as aggressive, but that's just how they talk, but they don't mean it like that. But the way that you are, that's not how you communicate. So it could be a personality thing too.
Yeah. I'm going to jump a little bit because you're talking about relationship, but failing to train a paralegal and invest in that relationship is another stupid thing that lawyers do. I
Yeah.
mean, it is an investment when paralegals don't come out of the box ready to go. That's everybody's dream, but humans don't come that way. So, how should lawyers invest in their relationship with a paralegal?
I would say attorneys know about training that's out there most of the time before paralegals do. So if there are, even like your state bar, if they have some type of training, like we had a CTLA one for paralegals, and firms sent their paralegals to this training, but the paralegals don't know about that. It's the attorneys that get this information to
Right.
then relay to their team. So like if you have that knowledge of training that's out there, offer it to the paralegals, see if they want to attend these type of trainings. Most of the time they're going to say yes. I mean, I would always want to further my knowledge and be able to support my attorneys the best way possible. But on top of that, like if it's a paralegal with experience that comes into your firm as a new paralegal, make sure you provide them with an understanding of how you communicate, how you prefer things done so they can adapt to that. Because we're not coming into the firm doing everything the way that we always have done it. We're coming into the firm in a new environment, having to adapt to this environment now. One thing that I did that because of this situation, I had to just kind of jot down little quirks of each attorney I worked with. So down to like their juris number, I just always had it on my notes on my desktop. I just copy and paste. But like how they like their depot prep scheduled, what times they like them, what days they don't take calls from clients, what days they prefer all client calls, or, all these little things. And if you're a law firm owner, if you're operations or HR, I think it's a great idea for you to ask your attorneys for those specific details and add them somewhere where it's one source of truth where everybody at the firm can go in there and see how you like things done. It doesn't have to be this elaborate, dictionary of all things I like, but you know, what days you take client calls, what times you like to do depot preps, certain things like that, who you prefer as a court reporter. I don't know, like
Yeah.
there are little things that I know attorneys know. So if they could spend that time just as they're thinking about it, jotting it down and sending it over to whoever can put this into the system. I think that would be super helpful for everybody when you have either a new teammate or maybe somebody at your firm goes and works with a different attorney. Now they have to relearn. They know the systems in the firm, but now they have to relearn working with a new attorney.
I love that. And I don't think anybody does that. I don't know.
I don't
I don't think that's very common, but it's like a great idea because we do carry so much in our heads, like our preferences, and it's not right or wrong. It's just what we prefer, but we don't necessarily have the self-awareness to say, I need to communicate that. So if a paralegal is coming into a new situation with an attorney, I mean, if you were to make a list of things just off the top of your head, like what would you suggest that they ask that attorney about? You've mentioned court reporters, depot prep,
Yep.
scheduling.
Client calls, even little things like who they like to use as their marshal for service. These are very litigation type topics, but I'm in a litigation mindset. I think what emails they need to see, what emails they don't need to see, or just like basic topics where the paralegal can then go and analyze the situation based on their preferences and make a determination without bothering the attorney every time. Like, hey, do you need to see this? Hey, do you want me to do this? Hey, what templates they prefer for certain or different case types? If it's a slip and fall, or a motor vehicle accident, what type of demand template do you prefer? Maybe there's multiple or there's just one standard. Have them create those or make suggestions for you based on what they like for you to then go and create a template that you can constantly use for them.
This is when I was an associate, a young associate. I would always ask the partner or senior associate assigning me work, how long do you think this should take me? When do you want to review my work? And just get like, especially if you're in a billable situation, which I was, just get parameters for if I run into problems after 3 days, I should go and see you. But I think the over communication, erring on the side of over communicating for both attorneys and paralegals, the work product is going to be so much better. Just
Yes,
making that investment in explaining this is what I like, this is what I prefer, this is what I'm going to consider a good job. This is, and especially like, this is how much time I want you to spend before you check in with me about this. So if you're struggling with this, I want you to check in rather than doing it the wrong way.
exactly.
It's so the huge returns.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important, you know, for to also include what days of the week they prefer, case review meetings with their paralegals. So maybe you don't have to do it every week, but that way the paralegal knows if there is a situation that comes up, they have this time set aside that if it's not busy on their calendar, they can put themselves there and they know that time is dedicated to them to go over these certain situations. Um, but I think it's also important for the attorneys to understand that just like they don't maybe like doing depot in the morning or depot preps in the morning, maybe your paralegals prefer to do client calls in the afternoon, or maybe they prefer to do them early in the morning. I think allowing your team to operate the way that they give their best will help everybody. Because if I need to call a client at 7 a.m., I'm going to probably forget a lot of things that I need to ask because I need to go through my emails in the morning. I go through messages in Slack. I check FileVine files or our clients' files and see what I need to do that day. Then once I have that, it's probably like 10 o'clock, Once I have all of that done, I'm like, all right, so now I can call this client, start making my client calls, and then do that for a good chunk of time and then carry on to the rest of the tasks I have for the day. But like that's my preference. That's how I operate the to my best, if that makes sense. Like
It
I think
makes
it's important that you also allow your team to do that as well.
Yeah, because we all have our own rhythms to the
Mhm.
day, and it's like fighting the tides.
Right.
Like, just let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it
Yeah.
along the lines of building a relationship.
Mhm.
Another stupid thing attorneys do is they fail to give grace when mistakes are made.
Yeah.
And I see this a lot. I always tell clients, attorney clients, that if somebody seems to be underperforming or didn't understand an assignment, like we have to look in the mirror first because we usually didn't give the right kind of instruction.
Mhm.
Usually, I will say this after years of supervising people, leading things, it's usually my fault, at least the first time. um, my assumptions about why something happened the wrong way or the way I didn't want it to happen are almost 100% wrong all the time. Just my assumptions are usually wrong. And that has been a hard learned lesson, but I have to approach mistakes with curiosity because there's usually a lot of information I don't have, or I have to go back through my email directions or my Slack directions and say, yeah, okay, I can see where I wasn't as clear as I needed to be. But I also think it's a moment to build trust with your team members. It's an opportunity. But I'm sure I don't want to take all of the airspace with this. I'm
No,
sure you have experience with
I think
either when people did or did not give grace.
yeah. I mean, I've been in both situations, but I like my first time in a law firm, the attorney I worked with was he gave me a lot of grace. And I think that developed my personality as a paralegal to always admit when I make a mistake because he gave me so much grace and allowed me the space to learn. So, myself, like if you're a paralegal, I strongly encourage you to, even though it's scary, admit when you make a mistake before that mistake is brought to your attention because maybe you could fix it before it needs to be escalated. Like little mistakes. Those don't really, make big movements. But when you make a mistake that you're like, I don't know what I should do about this, bring it to the attorney's attention. If they come at you with anger and they're all over you about it, that's a firm culture issue
That's
and not a
information.
you issue
Yeah.
because you are going to them because you know you made a mistake. You're admitting it before it gets to a point where you cannot fix it. And you need that attorney level advice or help to fix it or know what to do next.
And it's not always like, even if you have an attorney supervisor who might be a micromanager or might have some of these other issues or opportunities, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to check all of these boxes. I'm thinking back to the person that would slash up my briefs, but I remember making a really big mistake. And I went to him in like this, oh my gosh, like this panic. And he was so gracious about it. And left an impression on me. I will never forget it. Just wonderful about it. And so you just don't know, but it is an opportunity to build the relationship on both sides so that, your attorney trusts you to raise your mistakes and you trust them to give you some grace and support because you don't need blame.
Right. Yeah, I think that what you said is that that's really important because it does build trust in a sense where the attorney now knows that if you make a mistake, you are going to come to them first, which is what you should do and what they probably want you to do if they're a strong leader, and that they don't need to be micromanaging you either and
Yeah.
constantly checking your work because they know you're getting the job done, you're doing your work, and if you make a mistake, it's going to be brought up.
Yeah. Care. you care about doing a good job. I mean, I think so attorneys in our audience, if you're an attorney listening to this, give some grace when people raise a mistake because they're doing it because they care and they want to get better and they need your help fixing it. People don't forget that. I will never forget it.
Yeah.
So all opportunities for improvement.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Marissa.
Thanks, Allison. Great conversation.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Way for Paralegals. If you like what you heard, please follow, rate, and review the show. Until next time, keep being all that.